When we fixed the Bugatti, I repaired this wire here on the crash sensor. One, we've learned, cuts the power to the starter motor when all the airbags gone, but for some reason that didn't blow in the accident. But this still had power as well, so maybe there was some kind of fault or mistake.
They didn't think it would go anywhere, just a wrecked supercar sitting in a small garage. And Matt Armstrong with a camera trying to bring it back from what everyone else called the end. No team, no factory support, no permission, just problems. One after another, stacking higher than anyone expected. But the strange part? Every time someone said it can't be fixed, he kept going anyway. And somewhere in that silence between tools, late nights and broken parts, this stopped being just a rebuild.
An Aston Martin airbag fitted into a Bugatti Chiron. But if we have any hope on getting this car running, then we've got to fix this radiator first.
Because what happens when something the system called totaled starts to come back to life anyway? That's when people started paying attention. The garage. The internet couldn't ignore. To understand why any of this mattered, you have to go back to the beginning. Before the supercars, before the sponsors, the subscribers, the shipping containers full of parts arriving on pallets, before any of it, there was just a guy, a garage, and a camera that probably cost less than the tools he was using. I'm not a professional. I don't have a shop. I don't have a team. I just like fixing things that other people gave up on. That line, right there, that's where everything started. Because in a world drowning in content, studio lighting, scripted reactions, brands whispering in every earlobe, there was something almost unsettling about how genuine this was. A real person making real mistakes, leaving them in the edit because cutting them out would have felt like lying. You could hear it in the way he talked to himself under the car. You could see it in the 10-second pauses where he clearly had no idea what he was going to do next. The internet noticed, slowly at first. A few hundred views became a few thousand became tens of thousands. And then something shifted, the kind of shift you can't manufacture and can't explain, the kind that only happens when something is genuinely, undeniably real. 500,000 views on a video about a blown German engine. 2 million on a rusted Porsche pulled out of a field after 11 years. Numbers that made absolutely no sense for a channel that small. But here's the thing. People weren't watching a car get fixed. They were watching themselves in there.
There's a dent right there on the branch of the radiator. So now all that's left to do is separate them both, and then we can see how we can fix it.
In the frustration of a seized bolt at midnight, in the quiet, private satisfaction of a thing being made whole again, in the refusal to accept someone else's verdict on what was and wasn't worth saving. That's not a car audience. That's a human audience. And human audiences don't just watch, they stay. They come back, they bring people. It was still small, still under the radar, still just a guy and a garage and a camera, but the numbers kept climbing. And somewhere, in offices that smelled like leather and litigation, people were starting to pay attention. That was about to change everything. The impossible rebuild of the car was a Lamborghini Huracan, carbon fiber tub, V10 engine.
The Audi Lamborghini V10 platform. As far as exotics go, Huracans are known for being more reliable out of the supercars.
A machine designed by engineers who treat aerodynamics like a religion. From the factory, this thing had somewhere in the neighborhood of 610 horsepower and a price tag to match every bad decision you've ever made in your life. And it was destroyed. The front subframe was bent. The monocoque, the structural spine of the entire vehicle, had taken impact damage. The airbag control module had fired and was now dead. The front suspension geometry was just a concept, not a reality anymore. 3 different body shops looked at it and used 3 different versions of the same word: totaled. People keep asking me, why this car? Why not something easier? And honestly, because nobody thought it could be done. And I hate that. The first problem announced itself within 48 hours of the car being in the garage. The front crash structure, a part that's not designed to be replaced because the manufacturers assume the car is done when this goes, was unavailable. New from the factory, you couldn't buy it. The official dealer said the same thing every official dealer always says: write the car off, buy a new one.
Honestly, buying a Lamborghini comes with a lot more than just the car. A lot of people write Lamborghinis and supercars.
So he started making calls. Salvage yards in Germany, a specialist in Dubai who'd worked on a similar car, a retired Lamborghini technician in northern Italy who picked up the phone on the third try and spent 40 minutes telling him everything the manufacturer didn't want him to know. Weeks passed. The front end came together, piece by piece, through a combination of sourced OEM parts, carefully fabricated components, and a level of obsessive precision that most dealerships, frankly, don't bring to their own work. But then the electronics. Modern supercars aren't just mechanical objects. They're computers that happen to have engines. The Huracan runs on a proprietary drive-by-wire system, throttle, stability, torque vectoring, all of it talking through a network of modules that are programmed to the specific vehicle identification number. They don't just plug in, they have to be authorized by the manufacturer with software that's not publicly available. I've fixed the physical car. The car works, but it won't start because a computer doesn't believe it should. That's a weird place to be. That line didn't just describe the situation, it described the entire modern automotive industry. The garage that became a story. One of the things that separated this channel from everything else was something you couldn't quite name at first. You'd watch a few videos and slowly realize you weren't just watching the progress, you were watching the life happening inside the progress. The arguments with suppliers, the moments of pure, quiet absurdity. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Sir, that component is not intended for independent repair." I asked him what it was intended for. He didn't answer. I think the silence was the answer. That's not a scripted line. You can't write that. That's a man sitting in a garage at some ungodly hour, having just been stonewalled by a parts department that couldn't even be bothered to finish the rejection properly, and finding the dark comedy in it before the frustration fully lands. And those moments, the small, unglamorous, unsponsored ones, turned out to be the most magnetic content on the channel. More people watched a 10-minute clip of him re-bleeding the brake system, narrating it like a man quietly disputing a parking ticket he knows he deserved, than most car channels get on their highest budget productions. No music swells, no slow-motion beauty shots, just a guy, a bleed nipple, and a running internal monologue that somehow made you feel like you were there, in the cold, doing it alongside him, because it was real, completely, uncomfortably, refreshingly real. 3 in the morning became a familiar timestamp on the vlogs. Not occasionally, regularly. He'd be in there alone, circling something he thought he'd already solved, because one detail was still wrong. One measurement sitting a fraction outside tolerance. One torque spec he'd second-guessed 3 times and still wasn't sure about. One electrical connection that read perfectly fine on the meter but felt wrong. And after 15 years of doing this, he'd learned to trust the feeling over the reading. The comments started calling it the obsession. And the way they said it matters, not mockingly, not as criticism, reverently, like they were naming something they recognized. That specific state of being so consumed by a problem that you've quietly stopped asking whether it's rational and started only asking whether it's right. Whether you can live with yourself if you don't see it through. Most people have been there, not with cars necessarily, but with something. Someone asked me in the comments last week if this was worth it, and I genuinely don't know how to answer that. I can't stop. That's not really a worth it situation anymore. That's just what's happening. The audience didn't need a translation for that. They didn't need to know what a torque spec was or why the brake bleed mattered or what the electrical fault actually meant. They just needed to have ever cared about something so much that the rational exit signs went dark and invisible. That's not a car frequency. That's a human frequency, and the whole world was tuned in. The pressure behind the garage. Around the time the car started running, when the engine turned over for the first time,
Today we're gonna drive the Bugatti Chiron for the first time.
and the garage filled with that sound, that impossible V10 sound that rattled the shelving and bounced off the concrete and hit everyone present somewhere deep and physical before it hit them emotionally. Something else was happening. Something quieter. Something that didn't make it into the videos. Not directly. Not yet. He never talked about it on camera. Not at first, and that restraint itself was deliberate because he's careful that way. Measured, strategic in a way that doesn't look like strategy. He understood, probably better than most, that the moment a creator makes their story about conflict with a corporation, the conversation migrates. It stops being about the work and starts being about the war. And he never wanted this to be about war. He wanted it to be about the car. But between the lines of certain videos in the weeks that followed that first engine start, something shifted. Subtle enough that casual viewers missed it entirely. Visible enough that the people who'd been watching since the beginning felt it immediately. A new deliberateness about what he showed, what he named out loud, what terminology he used, and what he quietly stepped around. The garage was the same, the work continued, but something in the atmosphere had changed. To understand why, you need a piece of context that most people outside the automotive industry never think about. When a manufacturer builds a car, especially a car at this level, they don't just sell you the machine, they sell you access to a controlled ecosystem. The software that runs the drivetrain, the proprietary diagnostic tools that talk to it, the parts that are manufactured to specification and distributed exclusively through authorized channels, the trained technicians who are certified to touch it. Every layer of that ecosystem is a layer of control, and that control doesn't transfer when the car changes hands. It stays with the manufacturer, permanently. In some countries, this is being actively challenged. Right to repair legislation is working its way through governments, pushed by advocates who argue that ownership of a physical object should include the right to understand and repair that object. In most of the world, though, it is simply accepted. A quiet structural assumption baked into the industry that nobody interrogates because interrogating it is inconvenient, and inconvenience is unpopular. Until someone with 2 million subscribers starts showing the world, step by step, exactly how to rebuild a car the manufacturer had officially classified as beyond private repair.
We think that one got damaged in transit, but we've still managed to split the car in half, repair the gearbox mounting, put the car back together, start it for the first time, and replace all of the airbags.
That's not a hobby project anymore. That's a challenge. Not stated, not aggressive, not a single confrontational word spoken directly to camera, just visible, undeniably, uncomfortably visible. A lot of people have been asking about certain things I haven't talked about, and I'll just say there are things that happen behind the scenes of running a channel like this that aren't in the videos. Some of that is boring logistics. Some of it is other stuff. He pauses. Looks at the camera with an expression that carries everything he isn't saying. The car's going to be finished. That's all I'll say right now. The car's going to be finished. The comment section didn't just react, it ignited, because the audience understood immediately what those careful, measured words were carrying underneath them. They understood that other stuff was doing enormous work in that sentence. They understood that a man who talks openly about everything, every failed part, every wrong turn, every 3 a.m. doubt, choosing suddenly to speak in soft, deliberate half-disclosures meant something significant was pressing against the edges of what he could say. And they were right, because this had stopped being about one car in one garage a long time ago. This was about who owns information, who controls the right to repair something you purchased with your own money. This was about whether a man with a torque wrench and a camera and 3 hours of sleep behind his eyes gets to finish what he started. And the world, all of it, not just the car people, waited to find out. The story beneath the story. Here's what nobody talks about when they talk about this channel. It's not really about the cars. It never was. Spend enough time in the comment sections, not skimming, actually reading, and a pattern emerges that no algorithm can account for and no retention metric can explain. People writing paragraphs, not about the build, not about the engine specs or the suspension geometry or whether the paint match was perfect. About their lives, job losses, relationships that fell apart quietly, the way things fall apart when nobody has the energy left to fight. Health diagnoses that rearranged everything. The specific bone-deep exhaustion of living in a world that accelerates constantly and waits for no one. And then, at the end of all of it, this car reminded me of something. Not taught, not inspired, reminded. Like they already knew it, somewhere underneath everything, and just needed to see it demonstrated in a cold garage at 3 in the morning by a man who refused to accept someone else's conclusion about what was salvageable. Because what he was doing in there was something ancient, something our whole society has quietly, slowly, almost catastrophically stopped valuing. The idea that when something breaks, you fix it. That broken is a condition, not a verdict. That the people who wrote the car off, who stamped it total loss and moved on, are not automatically the ones who get to decide what its future is. That idea used to be common sense. Now it feels almost radical. The car became a symbol without anyone deciding it should. And that's the rarest kind, the accidental symbol, the one that earns its meaning instead of being assigned it. He wasn't trying to represent anything larger than himself. He wasn't making a statement. He was just trying to fix a car, finish what he started, prove something to himself in the private way that only garage projects ever really can. But the audience looked at it and saw themselves looking back. The person who pitched the idea, everyone dismissed. The small business owner the bank turned down without ceremony. The kid who was never supposed to be in those rooms, not credentialed enough, not connected enough, not the right background or the right name or the right anything, but showed up anyway and did the work anyway and refused to let someone else's assessment of their ceiling become their actual ceiling. He built a car, but what the audience built around it was something that outlasts any car. A community bonded not by a shared interest, but by a shared belief. One that sounds almost embarrassingly simple when you say it out loud, that if you refuse to quit, the story isn't over. I don't know how to explain what this feels like. I know that sounds stupid when it's a car, but it's not really a car anymore, is it? I mean, it's a car, but it's also... He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Everyone watching already knows exactly what comes next, because they've been feeling it the entire time. And that's where this story stops being about a car. Because once something like this is proven possible, once a machine written off by systems, experts, and institutions can be brought back to life in plain sight, the question is no longer whether it can be done. It's who gets to decide what should have stayed impossible. Matt Armstrong didn't just rebuild a Ferrari. He reopened a question the industry thought it had already closed. And as that question moves further beyond the garage, beyond the channel, and into the world watching it all unfold, what happens when the people who control the rules realize they're no longer the only ones writing the story?